What's going on, everybody? Cleepus Tech here, coming back at you with another video. In this video, I'm going to be giving you my first impressions of the Boost Mobile Celero 5G Plus. Now, as always, if you do end up wanting to learn more about this phone, be sure to check out the description, where I will be linking to several other videos about it as they come out, as well as some information about pricing, availability, and some of my favorite smartphone accessories. But with that being said, let's get into it. Now, before we actually get into the phone itself, I want to take a look at the box and what comes inside it. So as you can see right here, Celero 5G Plus. In here, we got a SIM card removal tool, quick start guide, charging cable, and a wall adapter. But moving on to the phone itself, with the Boost Mobile Celero 5G Plus, we're getting a really large 6.95-inch 120Hz IPS LCD display with a 1080p resolution, a PPI of 386, and a 20.5:9 aspect ratio. So definitely a huge display here. So if you're going to be on your phone a lot doing stuff like reading, for example, where you might want things to be a bit larger and easier to see, then this phone will be a great choice for that. And with the 20.5:9 aspect ratio, we're getting a really tall and narrow form factor. So if you're in landscape mode, you're going to get a more immersive cinematic experience. And then of course, with a 1080p resolution, we're getting a nice, sharp, crisp image, so also great for consuming content. And with the 120Hz refresh rate, the movement on the screen is going to be a bit faster and smoother, making the phone feel more premium to use. So overall, if you're looking for a really affordable phone that has a nice display, you're definitely not going to go wrong with this phone. Now for storage, with the Boost Mobile Celero 5G Plus, we're getting 128GB of internal storage with microSD card expansion, so definitely plenty of storage here. For the average user, you're probably never going to fill this up, and even if you come close, maybe you have a lot of photos and videos or something like that, you can always use a microSD card, and that definitely will make a difference. For security features, unfortunately with this phone, we're not getting Face Unlock, so if you do like to use that feature, definitely keep this in mind, but it does at least have a fingerprint scanner right here on the power key, so let's give it a try. There we go. One more time. And there we go. So real fast and responsive. No issues at all. For the camera setup here, with the Boost Mobile Celero 5G Plus, up front, we get a nice hole punch design for the selfie camera. This camera is 16 megapixels. Then on the back, we get a triple camera setup with a 50 megapixel main camera, a 5 megapixel ultra wide camera, and a 2 megapixel depth sensing camera. So for some reason, there's no macro camera, but at least it does have an ultra wide camera, and in my opinion, I feel like an ultra wide camera is just more useful anyway. So on one hand, if you do want to get those really close up detailed images, then you might be a little disappointed, but again, at least we are getting an ultra wide camera here. And with the 50 megapixel camera, although seeing as this is a first impressions video, I haven't actually used the camera yet, I am expecting the photo quality to be pretty good. And then keep in mind for video with this phone, we are getting a max recording quality of 1080p in both the rear and front cameras. So no 4K here, but considering this is more of an entry level device, I'm really not surprised. Now for the RAM and processor, with this phone, we're getting 6GB of RAM with the Qualcomm Snapdragon 695 5G processor. Overall, in my limited experience using this phone, the performance has been pretty good. No performance issues or anything like that, and in general, on one hand, if you're really going to be on your phone all the time doing more demanding activities, like high performance mobile gaming for example, you might want to get something a bit faster because despite being actually pretty fast for what it is, at the end of the day, this is still a really affordable carrier branded phone, and you can't really expect it to perform like a $1,000 flagship phone. But that being said, for pretty much any kind of daily tasks like web browsing, social media, a decent amount of light mobile gaming, and then streaming content like videos and music, stuff like that, this phone will absolutely get the job done. And again, it actually is pretty fast for what it is. So if you are going to be on your phone a decent amount, but you're still really not doing super demanding activities, then in that case, I do think you will get a good experience with this phone. And of course, as the name suggests, this phone is a 5G phone. And considering that despite having a full retail price of $289, it's really doubtful you're actually going to end up paying that for this phone. I think right now it's on sale for like $140. So in general, definitely a really affordable device. And this really goes to show that at this point in 2023, 5G phones are becoming more and more affordable. So definitely great to see. Now I did run a benchmark test on this phone using Geekbench 6, and here are the results I got. So what I recommend doing is running this test on your current phone, and then comparing your results to these, and that's going to give you a better idea of where this phone stands performance-wise compared to your current device, because depending on what you currently have, this phone may or may not be an actual performance upgrade. But I would say in general, if you're coming from more of a mid-range phone, keep in mind, these scores for what it is are actually pretty impressive, so chances are this phone will be a pretty good upgrade. But if you're coming from maybe an older flagship phone or something like that, then it's probably going to be a different story. But overall, I would say again, although this is a first impressions video, so I haven't really gotten a chance to use the phone a ton, in my experience so far, everything has run pretty well. And considering this is again a really affordable carrier branded phone, it is actually pretty fast for what it is. Now for the battery, with the Boost Mobile Celero 5G Plus, we are getting a 5000 mAh battery. This supports 15 watt fast charging, so definitely definitely a great battery here. With a 5000 mAh battery, you can expect to get really good battery life and longevity. So if you're maybe not around a charger a whole lot and you need something that's really gonna last all day without charging, for that kind of use, this phone will be a great choice. And then of course, down the road as the battery degrades, which all batteries do, with this phone, you're not going to notice it nearly as quickly as you would with a much smaller battery. So if you like to get one phone and then keep it for a long time without having to replace it, this phone will be a great choice for you. And with 15-watt fast charging, while on one hand, this is definitely not the best fast charging you can get, for what it is, it's pretty much as good as you can expect. And in my experience, while not being like lightning fast, the charging speed is at least decent. And another cool thing about this phone I almost forgot to mention is that with the Boost Mobile Celero 5G Plus, we actually are getting wireless charging. So definitely not a feature you find every day in a phone like this. In fact, even at this point in 2023, most of the phones that have wireless charging are flagship phones, which are $1,000 phones or more. So definitely a nice convenient feature to have. My favorite thing about wireless charging is that, say you're traveling for example, instead of carrying a battery pack with an annoying wire in your pocket, you can just get one of these that's wireless, put it on the back like this, and this is actually going to charge the phone. So definitely a nice convenient thing to have when you're traveling. So while in most cases wireless charging isn't really a game changer per se, getting the feature with this phone is definitely a nice bonus. Now for the software, unfortunately with the Boost Mobile Celero 5G Plus, this phone does only have Android 12, which I guess is acceptable at this point, especially considering, again, this is a carrier branded phone, and when it comes to phones like these, they tend to not have the best software support, but seeing as most new 5G phones at this point in the year are getting Android 13, this might be a little disappointing to some people. So if you do want the latest version of Android, you're probably going to want to skip this phone, but again, in my experience, I haven't had any performance issues. Android 12 runs decently well, so overall, if you're looking for more of a budget option like this, I feel like for what this phone offers, it is a decent sacrifice, but at the same time, again, if you do want Android 13, if that's a bit more important to you, then there are plenty of other options out there. On the bright side though, when it comes to other features, the Boost Mobile Celero 5G Plus does have NFC, so if you like to use tap and pay, keep in mind, you can use it with this phone no problem. And then this phone also does have a headphone jack, which depending on what you currently have, you might be wondering, why does this really matter? But keep in mind, there are lots of phones, mostly Samsungs, but some Blue phones for example, and pretty much every higher end phone that are all getting rid of their headphone jacks, like the Samsung Galaxy A54 5G for example. That phone does not have a headphone jack. The Blue Bold N2 is another one, and that one is actually pretty much around this phone's price range, if not a little bit less. So the point is, while not every manufacturer is getting rid of headphone jacks, at least not yet, it is definitely a feature I feel like you're probably going to have to enjoy while you still can, because in maybe 5 years or so, I doubt very many smartphones are going to have headphone jacks anymore. But in conclusion, my overall first impressions of the Boost Mobile Celero 5G Plus. In general, I feel like for what it is, this is actually a really impressive device. It has a great display that's super large. In fact, I feel like this is one of the larger displays I've seen, at least for a smartphone. Obviously, if you get a tablet, it's going to be way larger than this, but in general, if you are consuming a lot of content like watching videos and stuff, especially considering this phone also has really good image quality, it will definitely be a great option. It also has plenty of storage, a pretty decent looking camera setup. Definitely stay tuned for my full review where I will have actual photo and video samples. But yeah, from what I've seen, the camera setup does look really good. I mean, I haven't used a 50 megapixel camera that takes terrible pictures, so in general, I can kind of predict it is going to be a pretty good camera here. The performance is also pretty impressive. We're getting a large battery here and features like NFC and wireless charging. So in general, if you're looking for a really affordable 5G phone, then I would say the Boost Mobile Celero 5G Plus is definitely worth considering. Now once again, if you want to learn more about this phone, definitely check out the description where I am going to be linking to several other videos about it, as well as some information about pricing, availability, and some of my favorite smartphone accessories. But that's it for this video. If you enjoyed it and found it useful, be sure to give it a thumbs up and hit that subscribe button. Don't forget to follow Kalipus Tech on Twitter and Instagram. And as always, I will see you in the next video.